Good afternoon. The House Agriculture Affairs Committee will come to order. And first up, we have some minutes. Representative Schertz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a motion.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes from February 20th, 2025. I find them in good order, and I move to approve the minutes from February 20th, 2025.
Thank you. Committee, we have a motion to approve the minutes for February 20th, 2025. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The minutes will be approved. Now we have Senate Bill 1026, Representative Tanner. If you'd come up to the podium and give us your introduction, and the time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good. Representative Tanner, I don't think the mic is on. Thank you. If you'd introduce yourself again, just for the record.
Absolutely. For the record, I'm Steve Tanner, and I'm representative for District 13, which is the eastern half of Nampa. And I'm here today to introduce Senate Bill 1026. I want to say also thank you for working me in today. I know you have a busy schedule. So this bill comes over from the Senate. It passed there. That was originated with Senator Nichols. So what this bill does, if you look at this bill, in the first section it provides definitions, and then after that it talks about chicken ownerships. And basically the guts of this bill is that we don't want any entity such as an HOA to be able to use deed restrictions or covenants in order to restrict the ability of homeowners to have chickens on their property, to raise chickens. So in the formula that is provided here in looking at lines 36 through 39 on page 1 there, particularly on 30 and 39, is being able to have 4 chickens for every 2/10 of an acre. So up per acre, that'd be 20 chickens. Bless you. And what this bill also allows is that homeowners associations, they can still adopt, even though they can't restrict ownership, they can still adopt reasonable rules for around chicken ownership, such as you can't have a rooster, perhaps, or ordinances regarding smell, managing smell. For instance, I do live in an HOA, and the only restriction we have on chicken ownership is just that we can't have roosters. Other than my dog won't let me have them either. But this section does apply to single-family dwellings only. It doesn't apply to multifamily units like high-density housing, apartments, or attached buildings. And then also in the last section, it does not apply to agricultural zones, rural properties, farms, hobby farms, any place where it doesn't permit regulations that permit the keeping of poultry, and that's really what this bill does.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions for Representative Tanner? Representative Mossman.
On the 2/10 of an acre, is that open land or 2/10 for the entire lot?
For the lot.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes.
You're good.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Representative Digert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tanner, has there been any discussion with the state vet or others what this will do for being able to control the bird flu or phytosanitary or reporting of any diseases that come up with these livestock?
Representative Tanner.
I have not heard of any discussion on that.
You got a follow-up?
So they haven't weighed in at all on what this potential could do for being able to, with their efforts in being able to control the bird flu?
Representative Tanner.
I have not heard of any, and I don't have any in the documentation in front of me.
Representative Ayers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tanner. For the 4 chickens per 2/10 of an acre, is that a floor or a ceiling in terms of the number of chickens?
Representative Tanner.
That's a great question. Thank you, Chairman, Representative Ehlers. That question has come up. I understand that there have been a number of inquiries in that direction from people who are saying that that would restrict them, that they already have more than that, and they're allowed to have more than that. So there is Senator Nichols has provided an amendment for this that would allow wherever it's allowed by the HOA, then they can go up. So if they're already allowed, they're already operating above that limit, then they'd be okay.
Follow up.
Follow-up. Mr. Chairman, Representative Tanner, is that a immediately forthcoming amendment? Or I guess the concern is that we vote for this and don't see an amendment this session.
Right.
Representative Tanner.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Representative Ehlers, yes, I do have the amendment available, and we can discuss that.
So, Representative Ayers, I would say that the ask is to send to general orders where we would throw that amendment in. Follow up again.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. My question comes from, I guess, how does this interact with city code?
Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Chairman and Representative Ehlers. It does not exceed city code. So if there is city or county ordinance that says you cannot have chickens, then that would prevail.
Representative Ayers.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Tanner, how about on the other side, if there's a city ordinance that says you can have unlimited number of chickens, how would this bill interact with that ordinance?
Follow up. Go ahead, Representative Tanner.
It does not, Chairman, Representative Ehlers, it does not preempt city ordinances.
Representative Nelson.
Mr. Chairman, Speaker, for a couple of questions. First is, would you define small-scale livestock? This bill on page 129, line 29, doesn't say chickens. It says or small-scale livestock. Would you read the definition in code for us of what small-scale livestock is?
Representative Tanner.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Representative Nelson, there is a trailer bill coming for this that completely replaces paragraph 3 that defines that.
Follow up, please. I can't coach in code where it says that, but my understanding of small-scale livestock are sheep, goats, and weaner pigs. And I hope I'm wrong, but I can't really sit here and tell an HOA that they're going to have weaner pigs next door to do that. Another issue I have for local control, and it's more a statement, but I want to make it while you're at the podium, is if a willing buyer buys a house in an HOA, they're given the copy of the requirements from the HOA, whether it's which shrubs you plant, what lawn you have, landscaping. Some HOAs get really down in the weeds of what you can do and what you can't. Why should the state jump in and say, well, you may have agreed to it and bought the house, you voted with your checkbook. Why should we step in and undo that, if you will?
Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Chairman. If you don't mind, I would like to respond to the first part, your first statement first, Representative Nelson. So this bill only allows for the procurement and farming of chickens. So it says that very explicitly. So the definition of small farm animals even is wider, like you say, and it does include pigs, but this only includes it only pertains to chickens. So there's that. And then secondly, in regards to covenants and, with HOAs, they haven't been regarded as private contracts. And the state has intervened in many instances. For instance, in installing the solar panels, in Idaho code, we have where the state has overridden HOA restrictions regarding solar panels, parking, a number of other things. So it's not outside the realm for doing this, for the state to take this kind of action.
Representative Cannon.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tanner, I'm trying to get a feel for how big of an issue this is in the state. Do you know what kind of numbers we're talking about in terms of the HOAs or other entities that currently have restrictions on chickens?
Representative Tanner.
Chairman and Representative Cannon, I do not have statistics on that. I know that Senator Nichols has been fielding calls about this for the last couple of years, and this bill is the result of a momentum of a number of people contacting her, but I don't have statistics for you, sorry.
Representative Matthias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tanner, could you just confirm for me, is Senate Bill 1063 the trailer bill?
Yes.
That's currently, okay.
Yes, Chairman Andrews, yes, Representative Matthias, that is it.
Representative Schertz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tanner, welcome. I had a quick question on page 1, 36 to 39. The way I read that is that this will be going forward. You can't insert into any of these documents. Is that the intent, that what is currently in place in the HOAs wouldn't have to go back and be rewritten, but just going forward, an HOA can now not prohibit them in the deed or covenant? Because a lot of these deeds, restrictions, covenants are already drafted. And so just the way this is worded, it seems like what's in place now will continue to be in place. But going forward, this would be, you can't prohibit the backyard chickens. Is that a correct interpretation of that?
Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Chairman Andrews. Chairman Schertz, or Representative Schertz.
I'll take the promotion.
Okay. That's a great question. That's a great question, and I'd have to find out about that. I would just say you probably know better than I, given your background.
That's just the way I read it. I don't, but I'm not saying I'm not a property lawyer, and I don't pretend to be. But I just don't envision them going. I don't think this bill requires them to go and rewrite it. But it would make sense. I think it definitely restricts it going forward. But I was just curious on that, just to make sure because I know some of the intent will come back to what we're voting on here. Some of that intent goes to, hey, what the purpose and intent of that language is kind of some ways how we're interpreting that. So,
Chairman, if I can respond to that. It would make sense that going forward, yes, that would be what HOAs would do. They would account for this in the contracts going forward. That would make sense.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I heard you say earlier that this wouldn't conflict with county or city regulations, but I don't see in here where I'm reading down line 36, 22-103, and I don't see anything about that.
Well,
Representative Tanner.
yes,
Go ahead.
Chairman and Representative Miller. This is just a restriction on homeowners associations. So it's not speaking directly to county or city ordinances.
Representative Sauter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative. I guess for a statement and a question, the way I read the section 22-1003, it says in it, the text is running with the land. So I'm concerned it means what's the HOAs that are out there now, but I am certainly no attorney. Is there any chance that what's coming, Senate Bill 1063, will clarify one or all of the questions that we've had today?
Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Chairman and Representative Sauter. No, what Senate Bill 1063 does is it completely replaces paragraph 3, which is lines 20 through 30 on page 1. And it speaks to defining urban farming and also small farm animals.
Okay, thank you. Just follow up?
Follow up.
Mr. Chair, just for me, I'd feel more comfortable if we had Senate Bill 1063 in front of us as well. I'm not sure how that process would work, but it just feels like that would give us the universe versus talking about this one now and taking action. But that's just a statement. Thank you.
Okay, well, I mean, just to address that statement, we could hold, a motion could be to hold for time certain, if that was the will of the committee. That's something you could do if that's what you want. You can do it now or wherever, whenever. Okay, Representative Achilles.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tanner, I guess I'm still going the same place where Representative Miller and Representative Nelson were. It's just trying to understand where is the language in here that protects existing city code if they do have a prohibition on it? Because I've read through this now a couple times, and I don't see where that is, number one. And then number two, can you remind us what edits you wanted to make if we do send this to general orders?
Representative Tanner.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman and Representative Achilles. You're right. It's not explicitly there. It just is. It's just explicitly in reference to homeowners associations. So you're right. It doesn't speak to that. The second part of your question is I can give you that edit now if
Yeah,
you'd
you
like
could.
to.
You want to just read it to us?
Yes, I will read it to you. So right there in line 38, we would delete the words up to and then insert the words at least. And then also then on line 39, right after the words of an acre, we would insert with additional chickens permitted based on the lot size or otherwise allowed. Would you like me to read that again?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, line 38, delete the words up to, and then insert in its place at least. And then on line 39, following where it says of an acre, we insert the words with additional chickens permitted based on lot size or as otherwise allowed.
Representative Mathias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tanner, I don't know if you can answer this. You're not the primary bill sponsor, but I'm reflecting on Representative Sauter's question about the potential ability to see the two bills together. And I just pulled up 1063. It was introduced 20 days ago and hasn't had a hearing yet. And the sponsor is the chair of the committee, which gives me pause that we might not see this trailer bill for quite some time. Could you tell us kind of what the trajectory of the trailer bill is so that might help us make a decision about whether we would ever be able to see them side by side?
Representative Tanner.
As soon as, thank you, Chairman. As soon as I get the green light, then I'll start pushing it forward.
Representative Dygert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Miller, you know, I'm looking on line 29, and it's talking about small-scale livestock, which I'm going to assume probably includes opening it up for rabbits and small meat animals, either for fur production or meat production. And then could you address, because it's using the term poultry, which poultry includes ducks, geese, turkeys, and other wild, or well, wouldn't it be wild, anything that would be considered as a food-grade bird animal would fit under that definition of poultry, even though you've gone on to specifics about chickens later. Doesn't it still leave it open for ducks, geese, and turkeys?
Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Dygert. Steve Tanner. You're correct. I mean, I mean, those could be included in the definition, but again, I just want to restate that 221003 is explicitly in regards to chicken ownership.
Representative Nelson.
Mr. Chair, Speaker, for basically another technical question. I'm on line 38, and it says pasturing. And if you're part of a ranching community, how your neighbors pasture cattle, what kind of a containment fence they have. This committee has been in the middle of all kinds of fencing requirements. What's a fence? Who has to do it when you face the property line with your neighbor? Which part of it is your responsibility and which is theirs? This also brings up pasturing. And that I'm aware, there's really nothing to say, if my neighbor's got a bunch of chickens and they're out pasturing my garden, that's not a good way to get along. If you want to address that, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Representative Nelson. Great question. Actually, in line 1, that section, or number 2 on page 2, beginning with line 1, that the homeowners association can adopt reasonable rules subject to applicable statutes in order to restrict how that's done. So they can apply rules to make it reasonable for everybody.
There is a page 2. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. Good job. Never thought you'd have so many questions from us, did you? But we have some public testimony signed up.
Okay.
So first up, we have William Schultz. If you'd like to come up and tell us your name, who you represent, and we'll give you a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is, William Schultz, but I go by Bill. I'm a former president of the Kingsbridge Homeowners Association, where I served there for 8 years and still an active member of the association. One of the main reasons my wife and I chose Kingsbridge was because of the CCNRs. Even though phase 1 of 3 was not even close to being built out, we knew that the subdivision would be very nice, quiet, clean, and very comfortable because of the CCNRs. Now that Kingsbridge has developed, has become a sought-after community in which to live, largely due to those restrictions. I stand before you today in opposition of Senate Bill 1026 for many reasons. Allowing 4 or more than now, from what I understand, to every 2/10 of an acre is a farce because each home takes up to 85–90% of the land. So now that available land for the chickens is much smaller. The stench of the chickens is not limited to the property, especially when the coop is located away from the owner's house and next to the neighbor's fence. Chickens will bring predators into the neighborhoods. Are the owners of the chickens going to be responsible for the loss of the neighbor's animals? Cats, dogs. Each chicken roughly produces 1 egg per day, if that. So at 50 cents per egg, owners of 4 chickens will save about $2 a day, if we're talking about pricing. If they cannot afford that, they can't afford to live in a nice subdivision, let alone any subdivision. $60 a month. So why put that on the homeowners that do it the correct way and have the CCNRs changed by the will of the majority of the people in the subdivision? This bill will be a nightmare for the HOA boards, as well as find the face of those that purchase a very nice community based on the language of the CCNR. I feel that if a person wants to have chickens, they should go buy some property outside of a subdivision. I respectfully request that this committee respect the investment of those that have chosen to live in subdivisions with restrictions that prevent it from becoming a bunch of mini farms. So I ask you to please at least push this bill off or just kill it outright. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Committee, is there any questions for Mr. Schultz? Seeing none, we thank you for being here. Thanks for your testimony. Now we have John Osmond. Mr. Osmond, if you'll tell us who you are and who you represent, we'll give you a few minutes. Thank you for being here.
So I'm John Osmond. I live in Star. I'm representing myself as a homeowner here in Idaho. And I just want to stress that in this bill, it talks about 0.2 acres. I don't know if any of you live on 0.2 acres, but that's the size of my lot. So just as reference, my backyard is 15 feet. Standard car length parking lot here in Idaho, here in Boise, 20 feet. So this bill, if passed, will put chickens 15 feet from my bedroom window. I can guarantee you, even though they're not roosters, hens make noise. They stink. They have a smell to them. If any of you raise chickens, do you put the coop next to your bedroom window? No. But that's what neighbors do. I have personal experience. October of 2023, my neighbors, we have an HOA, says no chickens. They decided to do it anyways. So they got 6 chickens, put it in their backyard. One family, against the will of 5 others surrounding them, had to deal with these chickens. And I don't know if you remember last year, February, we had a ton of snow. It was great. Those chickens pooped all over that yard. I could see straight from my bedroom window. Every day, I listened to them. I went to the HOA saying, hey, can you do something about this? And they're like, we'll try. But all they can do is really try and enforce the bylaws, send violations, things like that. And they did, and worked on it. I also went to the city to say, hey, you guys have laws that say they can't have chickens. Will you help? Their response is, work with the HOA. If that doesn't work out, come back and see us. So the HOA is our only contact. Fortunately, by late April, the chickens were gone. Unfortunately, end of February last year, we had a beautiful summer day. It was 60 degrees, just like we just had. All that snow melted, went right underneath my fence, pulling all of that chicken poop with it. I had a dog. His name was Jethro. He was my best friend. He loved to sleep next to that fence in his backyard. After that beautiful day, 6 days later, he was in ICU at West Vet. 3 days after that, he was dead. Why? Kidney failure from salmonella buildup in his kidneys. That chicken poop from those neighbors on that little 0.2 acre lot killed my best friend. So when people say, oh, chickens, they don't make noise, we're not going to do roosters. Hens make noise. They screech and scream when they lay an egg. They stink. I know. I could smell it through my entire house. They carry disease. I know. Because Jethro is dead. Please, I implore you, look at this bill. It's great for one family to get chickens. They can, save $60 a month, except that they're paying that much for bird seed. So they're not saving anything. But what they are doing is terrifying the surrounding 5 families. We live in little neighborhoods. 0.2 acres is nothing. It is a tiny lot. My grass is less than the width of this table. From that fence to my bedroom window, and these neighbors' only concern is, we have chickens, so now we can save some eggs. Please, vote no. I understand there's a need for chickens, but on a half acre, 1 acre, 5 acre, great. But anything smaller, and they're just a nuisance, leave the decision with the HOAs in those localities so that they can do what's best for their residents. This does not need to be statewide.
Thank you, Mr. Osmond. Are there any questions for Mr. Osmond? Seeing none, we thank you for being here. Thanks for your testimony. Now we have Mr. Scott Emmerich. If you'll tell us who you are, who you represent, and the time is yours. We'll give you a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Scott Emmerich. I live in a HOA in unincorporated Ada County in north of Star. A couple things have been already brought up that I have on my list here, so I will just zip through those. One is the wildlife encroachment being an attractive nuisance. I think that's going to bring in the wildlife to these urban areas and just cause problems, not only attacking the chickens, but attacking pets. I got a little dog. I don't want to take him out on a leash on that night that's 2 degrees to go potty, just so he doesn't get eaten by a coyote or something. Kind of the same thought there. What about if I have chickens and a neighbor has Rottweilers, German Shepherds, whatever? They're going to want to eat the chickens, and it's not going to end well for the chickens. So I think we're just inviting some aggravation there. There's probably a bunch of other unintended consequences that I haven't even thought through because I just found out last night about the hearing today. And this was touched on a bit. What if or when the bird flu jumps to humans? It's already jumped to dogs and cats. So now with dogs and cats in close proximity, what if it jumps to humans? I don't think the normal resident has any idea how to recognize bird flu, how to deal with a sick chicken, except, oh, Bob's dead today, and go down to Tractor Supply and go get another one. So that could become a big problem. And the other gentleman mentioned the salmonella. Also, the 4 chickens for 0.2 acres, our HOA varies in lot size. We have 316 lots. I think 174 of them are between 1 and 1.2 acres. But there's 2 lots that are over 12 acres. That's 240 chickens. That's not personal consumption anymore. And we also have regulations in our CC&Rs about running a business. Well, what else could you do with 240 chickens? You have to run a business. Otherwise, you have literally 100 kids to eat all those eggs. So now we have a state law that says the HOA has to allow chickens, but we have a covenant that says you can't run a business. How is the HOA going to adjudicate that? And I see that as a problem. And then this was also touched on, we just lose local control. And I know this legislature is really big on local control. And I totally agree with it. But this just kind of yanks the rug out from the HOA local control. And it actually removes the homeowner's right to have peaceful and quiet existence. And there'll be no escape anywhere in Idaho because this will be a statewide law. And I think it's just unfair to force an entire community to put up with chickens when they moved into an area that they know did not allow chickens. So again, it's just kind of yanks the rug out, maybe even a slap in the face to these homeowners. If the community wanted to have chickens, the CC&R amendment process is in place to deal with that. Our HOA in the past 10 years had 2 attempts at permitting chickens. They both failed miserably. And I think that kind of goes to show why, because of all these reasons that have been brought up. It's just not the right answer. There was also some ambiguities brought up by the various representatives. Thank you much for thinking on good thoughts on that. And I think this bill really doesn't solve anything but creates problems for existing homeowners in HOAs. So thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Emmerich. Are there any questions for Mr. Emmerich? Okay, doesn't look like we're having. Thank you, appreciate your time. Next up, we have Noel Rauschendorfer. You'll have to correct me when you come up here, but thank you for being here. We'll give you a little bit of time and introduce yourself and tell us who you represent. Thank you.
Let me adjust this down. There we go. Hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Noel Rauschendorfer, so pretty close. I'm a property law attorney that works for VF Law here in Idaho in Meridian. I specifically represent HOAs and do all property law. That's what I do every day, day in, day out. I also am a member of the Board of Directors of Community Associations Institute here in Idaho, which advocates on behalf of HOAs and planned communities as well. So specifically, I wanted to start by correcting one of the statements that was made earlier regarding CC&Rs. They are treated as private contracts. The Idaho Supreme Court has treated them as a private contract many, many times. So that's really important to understand here. The past laws from the legislature, specifically on solar panels as well as rental restrictions and a few other ones, they override the CC&Rs. So if current CC&Rs have a provision, so in this instance to restrict chicken ownership or any kind of thing surrounding it, this bill would preempt those pieces within the CC&Rs. So it wouldn't require that current CC&Rs would need to be rewritten, but it would make them unenforceable. So they wouldn't have to be changed, but they couldn't be enforced in any way. And going forward, obviously, no new CC&Rs could be put into place restricting that. So I think there's been a lot of amazing points made here today, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on the legal side of it as well. So one of the concerns I have is that within 22-1003, in the last line of the first paragraph where it says up to 4 chickens per 2/10 of an acre, I think that this phrasing is very ambiguous and could have 2 reasonable interpretations of if that means that for a lot that's from 0 acres to 0.2 acres, if they can have 4 chickens or not. I think that there is a reasonable interpretation to say that yes, between 0 and 0.2 could be read to allow 4 chickens, or it could be a floor, and so at 0.2 to 0.4, then it could have 4 chickens. So I think that there needs to be revision to specifically this section to outline an example of how this works so that that's very clear, and there isn't conflict and litigation that could come out of that. Next, I think that it's important to re-note that a 0.2 acre lot is very small, especially considering the amount of structures and hardscapes that are on those lots. As we heard from before, that's very small to be keeping chickens, and it's a very close proximity between a lot of lots all around. And so that goes to the point of a concern with avian flu as well as salmonella, on top of the just issue of nuisance generally of them being very loud, as well as attracting significant amounts of rats, which generally come along with chickens, as well as predators. I'm going to go to the other point that's been made here today, is that there are a lot more ambiguities within this bill than I've even pointed out here that are concerning, and I think lend to sending this bill to general order to be revised. My firm and I am happy to work alongside to be able to revise if necessary or wanted, but we really think that revision needs to happen. On top of that, what does reasonable rules mean? Specifically, for if an HOA is able to adopt reasonable rules, I think that this adds in a lot of ambiguity that could be concerning. Going forward, and bring litigation, which we would like to avoid. Also, as has been noted before, I think this could create both conflict within the courts as well as just within neighborhoods in general. On top of that, this bill would set a troubling precedent by undermining the ability of an HOA and the private property owners that bought into that HOA to be able to establish and enforce their CC&Rs that they chose to buy into and to change through that amendment process. And so I would like to reiterate that if people within an HOA would like to be able to have chickens and they have a restriction in place, they can go through that amendment process and follow that proper procedure where that local control would rule. Lastly, the bill interferes with the fundamental right to contracts, since CC&Rs are treated as contracts with those existing CC&Rs that property owners voluntarily either bought into or established through that amendment process. And so I am here today to oppose this bill and to encourage it to be sent to general order. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Rauschendorfer? Rauschendorfer. Oh, we've got all sorts of Representative Achilles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Rauschendorfer. So if CCRs are a private contract, then does this bill unwind every one of those private contracts going back, or is it just this can't be a term going forward? I'm just, sorry, I wasn't quite clear on that.
Ms. Rauschendorfer?
Yes, thank you for that question. To clarify, any current CC&Rs that have a provision restricting chickens, they would still have that provision, but it would be unenforceable. So anyone that has it currently, they don't have to rewrite, but it wouldn't be enforceable going back. And going forward, it would restrict HOAs from putting in new CC&R provisions restricting chicken ownership.
Representative Beiswinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think my question, trying to think through this here, is like, I guess maybe a lot of things we do here is where does the law get set? Who gets to set it? We like to have our stuff here in Idaho, but like, can't cities and towns, Horseshoe Bend, Star, wherever, can't they set this up instead of having an HOA? Or can you maybe give some pros and cons on it? Or
Ms. Rauschendorfer?
They can set laws and ordinances specifically for that. But this bill specifically is going after HOA's ability to do so. And so once an HOA is put into place, they have the ability to amend the CC&Rs that all of those owners had voluntarily bought into and subjected themselves to. So they had seen these CC&Rs before they bought, and then they decided to buy anyways. So they subjected themselves to these at the very beginning. On top of that, yes, cities can put in ordinances, but it would be the same kind of problem of interfering with private contract for cities to do so as it would be for the state. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sorry.
No follow-up, though?
Well, if I had to follow that comment, Mr. Chairman, it makes me, I hear that, like you kind of bought it and you know what you're getting, right? And I think everybody kind of respects that. At the same time, like, did you really have a choice? Because if all these places have these things in place and now you're letting your 5 other neighbors determine what you can do in your backyards, it's kind of there's competing rights here.
Yeah, thank you.
Chairman, can I respond to that?
Sure.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. So yes, there is a voluntary nature of buying into an HOA. The piece is that there are a lot of HOAs within this general area and all over Idaho that do not restrict chicken ownership. And so they very clearly could have bought into an area that doesn't have that restriction in place. And so with that, people have been buying into those specific communities for that purpose of not having chickens.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't look like we have any other questions, so thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Committee, that is all we have that's signed up to testify. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to testify? Okay, so Representative Tanner, if you want to come up and give us a close. we would appreciate that.
Thank you, Chairman. A lot of good points have been raised here, and there's an amendment also that's been brought, so it sounds like possibility that this might go to general orders and that some other points that have been raised here might be incorporated. I do want to just say a couple things. Just think about the why for this bill, and the why of this bill is that even though someone may have bought into a housing area where there is an HOA, and because they did that doesn't mean that they could have bought someplace else. I'm just thinking in my mind as I'm listening, to that statement. I know when I moved here, to buy out in the country around here would have been much more expensive. So given that what is happening right now with the cost of eggs, I mean, last night my wife told me that it was $6.50 a carton. And then I was talking to another friend last night, and she was saying, because of the bird flu concern, that there's an egg shortage, that Costco, when they put their eggs out, is running out within an hour. So there is a need, for families to have the ability to sustain themselves. And after all, Idaho is an agricultural state, and it makes sense that families would want to be able to sustain themselves with food production, to be closer to their own source of food. And we want to teach that. We want to inspire that. So those are all reasons why people have been calling and saying, we want to be able to do this. We want to be able to raise chickens. It teaches children, how to be self-reliant and responsible. And in regards to, again, I just want to emphasize that the state of Idaho has intervened over HOAs before. Like I said, and HOAs cannot restrict solar panels, or enforce water-efficient landscaping. They can't regulate street parking, for example. So those are ways in which the state has intervened before. So
Thank
I'll
you.
leave it there.
Thank you, Representative Tanner. And once again, you have an amendment that you would like to put in, so you'd like to go this to go to general orders about the concern about wanting to see the other Senate trailer bill. If it was asked, but you don't have any idea how soon we'll get that bill?
So the question, yes, Chairman, so the question is how to get it to this committee quickly. Yes, I'll find out about that.
Okay. Okay, Representative Dykert.
Is motion in order, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I move to hold Senate Bill 1026 in committee until such time it can be considered simultaneously with 1063.
Okay. We'll call that subject to call of the chair. Yeah, that'll work. I don't know that we can call the time, so that'll work. If you're in agreement to that.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Representative Ehlers?
For a substitute motion, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman, I move that we send Senate Bill 1026 to general orders, and if I could speak to that motion.
Yep, go ahead.
So I get the end the sponsor's trying to get to, which I can appreciate. It sounds like there's some concerns. Even the sponsor has some amended language. I actually think we could take what's in Senate Bill 1063 during general orders and just put it in there. That might be a faster way to get to it than, we may run out of time in this session to get 1063 over to us and through the whole process. So if it's in general orders, I think that could be incorporated as well.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Nelson.
For a third motion,
Amended
alternate motion,
substitute.
and before I make it for discussion, there's a bit of this to me, the headliner on this and the driver is local control. And even if all these issues we've talked about in the bill are all fixed, that's why I'm making the third motion, which I will in a sec, because I think it's appropriate up front to say, if we're going to vote against this, then why go to all this work of fixing it? So, and I'm fine being in the minority opinion on that too. So I would make a third alternate motion simply to turn this or deny this bill of going forward through committee for the simple reason that it overrides local control. And then I think inappropriate how we address things. If that loses, then we address the other motions. Thank you.
So Representative Nelson, your motion, your amended substitute motion is to hold in committee?
Correct. I move to hold in committee Senate Bill 1026.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, are there any other questions for Representative Tanner while he's still up there? Otherwise, we can, if we're going to discuss, we can let him go sit down. Thank you, Representative Tanner.
Thank you. Thank you, committee.
Representative Achilles.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think just to comment on the alternate substitute motion to hold it, there's three issues here. I just think we've got too many issues with this bill. I agree with Representative Nelson. We got to make sure we respect local control. We can't leave this key term, small-scale livestock, undefined and wait for that other bill. And then, of course, we've got these existing edits in it. And, you know, ultimately, if this is about the price of eggs, you know, shortage of eggs is a function of bird flu. Having chickens in your backyard with bird flu isn't going to fix the egg problem in your house. So I think for all those reasons, I support the alternate substitute motion to hold.
Representative Ehlers.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between the original motion and the amended substitute motion?
In my opinion, there was. The original motion is to hold for time, subject to call of the chair. And the amended substitute is just to hold. But I could be wrong.
No, you're right. Just point of order, could you explain the difference then?
The original motion will come back on our agenda, but the amended substitute motion will not come back on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman.
Choose for it to come back if you don't choose for it.
Does that satisfy you? Representative Mathias.
Mr. Chairman, and I would also add, it was my interpretation that under the original motion, you would have the authority to call it, and under the amended substitute motion, it would require 2/3 vote of this body to bring it back.
Representative Ehlers, go ahead.
Unless you want to clarify first, Mr.
You
Chairman.
can.
I believe 2/3 would be a lay on the table motion, which was not what was presented. So I guess maybe others have more comments on this to get at what the difference is. I guess my point is, I want to make sure there's a substantive difference, that there actually are true two motions, different motions, and not just we get a vote twice on the same motion, essentially, is where I'm at. But if the chair feels there are two different motions, I can accept that ruling from the chair.
The committee will go at ease for a minute to make sure that we're all in order. Okay. The House Agriculture Affairs Committee will come back in order, and after much discussion and deliberation, we consider that we have three motions on the table, or before us. We have the original motion is to hold, subject to the call of the chair, when we get the trailer bill in hand. The substitute motion is to send to general orders, and the amended substitute motion is to hold in committee. And that hold in committee, the chairman cannot bring it back, but the committee could bring it back based on a majority vote. So, is there any more discussion on those motions? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote, and we will start with the amended substitute motion first, which is to hold in committee. And if there's not a request for a roll call, then we will do. Representative Beiswinger, are you going to ask for a roll call?
Let's do a roll call.
Let's do a roll call. Okay. The secretary will call the roll on the amended substitute motion to hold Senate Bill 1026 in committee. Representative Diger, do you have a discussion on it? Nope. You're just ready to vote? I like it. And I would, along with that, I would encourage you to have your mic on when it's time to vote so that people who are watching can hear your vote. That is appreciated. Okay.
Chairman Andrus?
Aye. Oh, no, nay.
To hold in committee. Okay.
Correct, nay.
Raymond? Cannon?
No.
McCon? Mossman?
Aye.
Ehlers?
Nay.
Garner?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Pickett?
Yes.
Sauter?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
Beiswinger?
No.
Digert?
Yes.
Levitt? Mendive?
Yes.
Schertz?
No.
Matthias?
No.
Achilles?
No.
What's the count? The vote count is 8-7. The motion passes. The bill will be held in committee. With that committee, we will be adjourned.